Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting this evening's show. There's still a flood advisory out here for the Kuskokwim River between McGrath and Nikolai. That remains out through noon tomorrow. High water levels causing some bank erosion and other problems in areas there. So again, minor flooding, flood advisory, and that's out until noon tomorrow, at which time they'll either cancel it or, kick it out longer. For the satellite, you can see today, band of clouds moving westward, another band of moisture moving eastward here, and that putting the squeeze on the clear area here, especially over the southern interior. Some of this cloudiness out of band of cirrus that came in earlier today. Lower clouds, though, we're slipping up to the northeast, but all combined here this afternoon triggered some thunderstorms along the leading edge of this cloud mass here. And some of those developed on the east side of the mountains there, like around Port Allsworth, and extended up to around Puntilla, several lightning strikes there, and on up to the northwest, thunderstorm at Tanana, and then back up into the Kobuk Valley. North of there, just showers, areas of light rain up over the northwest interior. Clouds basically back here to the west as well as down to the southwest. Some light rain in over Norton Sound, and NOAA reporting that probably back around into St. Lawrence Island. A lot of low stuff here, fog, drizzle along the coast there. The main rain area now inland from Bethel on up across the Yukon Delta and eastward, with more of a convective nature to the precipitation in the Kuskokwim Valley eastward, and mass of rain sliding into the Bristol Bay area with rain along the coast there from about Port Hayden on up to King Salmon this afternoon, getting in toward Iliamna. Otherwise, the southeast coast still under the influence of this low pressure down here right in this area, and then remnants of an occluded front back up into the North Gulf Coast, and then on down through west-northwest Canada. Areas of rain and showers, areas of light rain and showers scattered around the southeast coast. Kind of a mostly cloudy day there, but a lot of sunshine again. Kodiak Island up into Cook Inlet, at least to start with, before the clouds rolled in, and a few sprinkles into the eastern inlet here up toward Anchorage. Sunshine, Tanana Valley. Nice day, 70s to lower 80s up over the eastern interior and the Tanana Valley areas. On up to the eastern Arctic coast, out to the west, system finally pushing some cloudiness up to the eastern Aleutians, barely making it there in the noon shot, but high pressure basically still controlling the Bering Sea. And so these systems coming around the high and dropping east-southeast from the Russian Far East across the northern Bering Sea to this position, the main low right out here, the upper low, and that's going to be slowly sliding southeastward over the next day and a half, and then the next system there exiting the Sea of Okhotsk, and that'll be moving mostly, taking a little bit more of a northern track into the northwest coast or the west-northwest coast on Tuesday. On today's chart here this morning at 10 a.m., low center at the surface still off just west of Ammonok, the front in about this position here with the warm front extending to the Alaska Peninsula. Again, showers and thunderstorms developing along the eastern edge of that cloud shield ahead of the front, and then that develops into more of a showery or rain condition here with lower clouds, areas IFR all the way back out into the Bering Sea and northward. And a lot of low clouds and fog out over just about all of the Bering Sea, right down to the Aleutians here. Some areas seeing VFR conditions at times here, the eastern Aleutians, and especially the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, still seeing that offshore flow northwest to southeast wind direction. So kept a pretty nice kept it dry anyway from places like Sand Point all the way up to Kodiak Island and then on up into Cook Inlet. For tonight, this low drifts a little to the north here following the upper level trough, pulling more to the north coast, so that's going to keep showers, mostly cloudy skies in over the Panhandle in that area tonight. Some of those develop and may move into Yakutat, possibly getting over to Cordova, and then northward across the Wrangell Mountains. Scattered showers and very isolated thunderstorms possible this evening. And the shower conditions, look for a few light showers possible here in Cook Inlet this evening. Maybe a little bit better chance down over the southern inlet. Some of this moisture slides into that area. But look for this trough to swing across Kodiak Island. Those clouds increasing now will become general overcast conditions of a mid and high level nature, with any showers occurring right over the mountain peaks there as that trough swings by. Most of the moisture will be banked up along the Bering Sea side of the Aleutian Range and Alaska Peninsula in this area for Aries IFR, and some moisture there. Another band coming around the low will keep it damp over the Kuskokwim Delta, as well as the River Valley on up to the northeast. Drying out here back to the north and northwest. High pressure, light winds, low clouds and fog coming in ahead of this next front, which is pushing a little bit farther to the northeast. It won't be taking that dive to the southeast that this one did. The upper trough gradually pulling southeastward tonight and tomorrow and into Monday night. This system down here just off the chart there, again with few isobars with it, so the winds will increase, not that dramatically, but from the light conditions they have now, they should pick up to as high as maybe 20 to 22 knots here, mostly south of Amchitka Island. Otherwise, light winds, light variable winds, no wind for the Fox Islands tomorrow there, but there will be a few clouds around, as well as same pattern here for the Alaska Peninsula. If you want any sun, you got to go to the Pacific side of things there. Otherwise, low clouds and fog. Could be some clearing over the Seward Peninsula tomorrow ahead of this system as it spreads some light rain, chances of light rain into St. Lawrence Island. Some of that warm front type weather will make it into Nunivak Island and maybe reach the southwest coast tomorrow afternoon. Otherwise, no big changes here, except look for more in the way of showers and thunderstorms in over the east central interior. Thunderstorms, Wrangell Mountains, chance of. Same thing for the Alaska Range, and some showers, mostly Kodiak Island. Again, with that cooling aloft and the increasing values of vorticity there as that upper trough moves in, could provide enough lift for a few scattered showers around and a little cooler temperatures there. And no change for the Panhandle. So have this upper trough in about this position off the north coast now. So it should dry out a little bit, but not completely down over the southern areas. Could see a few showers on the moderate side up over the northern portions of, say, from Haines over to Juneau, on up to Skagway, possibly back to Yakutat, but a partly sunny day for south central Alaska the way it looks at this point in time. Maybe some showers popping up and developing over the Talkeetnas, the Chugach, maybe the Kenai Peninsula, but the heavier stuff will be up here to the north and back to the west, even though this area will be decreasing in coverage and intensity as time goes on throughout the day tomorrow. And then Tuesday, that whatever's left moves eastward or southeastward, and look for a better chance of showers developing over the Kenai Peninsula, over the mountainous terrain there, right up the Chugach, Talkeetnas, on northward through the Tanana Valley, all the way up to this low near Arctic Village. Thunderstorms developing on the eastern edge of that cloud band and possibly back to the west, scattering out the showers too. Mostly sunny skies here for the western interior. A lot of low clouds will be banked up along the coast and they'll be pushing inland. So more IFR and rain and fog and drizzle here, pushing in again probably throughout much of the day there into Norton Sound and up into Nome, White Mountain, even crossing the peninsula into Kotzebue Sound in the western Arctic coastal areas. Just a narrow band of precipitation with this. In fact, this front kind of unique in that it has the gradient behind it instead of in front of it there, so it's mostly a push of cooler marine air at the lower levels coming in, with the main gradient holding back to the west over Russia. High pressure in over Bristol Bay and southeast Bering. Light winds here along the North Gulf Coast with the same sort of pattern there, so look for the low clouds and fog to be on the increase there due to the light wind conditions. But notice drier now over the southeast coast, kind of a reversal in the wind going north-northwest, and that may push the clouds up along the coast a little better, but the inland area is definitely seeing more sun on Tuesday. And then some of this moisture coming up from this system, which is mostly staying off the coast for a couple of days, may get pulled up and into the area. Actually, it'll be coming up from this region under some pretty good southeasterly winds in the mid and upper levels. So chance of rain and fog, mostly cloudy over the southern areas, Klawock, Craig, into Metlakatla, places like that on Tuesday afternoon. Temperatures down that way today, we're in the mid-upper 50s. A little milder up to the north, state capital at 63, 62 Yakutat and 59 at Cordova. And Seward down from the 70s they had yesterday to 58 degrees. South winds gusting to 25 miles an hour there. Definitely a sea breeze, actually some prefrontal winds actually you could call it, but either way a little bit more wind than what I thought was going to be yesterday. 70 degrees this afternoon, Talkeetna, about the same in Anchorage. These are all 4 o'clock readings, not the highs, with some sprinkles occurring at the International Airport. 62 in Homer, 64 in Kodiak, a lot of sunshine early on today. 70s here over the Copper River Basin. Northway, 73, Fairbanks, 80, and a place called Eagle was also 80 degrees today. 75 Fort Yukon. Tanana, the thunderstorm, 65, 66 in Bettles, and lower 60s here from Arctic Village all the way down across Huslia and Ambler down to McGrath at 63, and about the same temperatures there. Lower 60s on the eastern Arctic coast, down to the southwest, 40s, mid-40s to 50s over the southwest interior. Bethel only 50 degrees this afternoon, 52 on Alaska, 52 also out there at Adak, and 45 at Shimeo with some fog in the vicinity. Lows tonight in the 30s on the Arctic coast, otherwise 40s to lower 50s over much of the interior, except mid-50s up here over the Yukon Valley, and upper 40s to lower 50s along the North Gulf Coast, mostly in the lower 50s for the Panhandle. Highs for tomorrow back into the 70 to 80 degree range here over much of the interior, cooling back to the 40s along the Arctic coast, and 60s, 65 to 70. In fact, the Susitna Valley here shaded into the lower 70s there, and the southeast coast 50s to lower 60s, 50s for the Aleutians, 40s for the Bering Sea. Flying weather, IFR possible, especially in the morning hours here up over the northern southeast coast. Otherwise, marginal VFR, Dixon entrance right up into southern Canada there, and a batch of that pushing up over the southeast interior. VFR, Cook Inlet, marginal conditions for the Barren Islands, and down the east side of Kodiak Island, IFR with all the moisture in the upper low coming into the southwest, but breaking out to the north, socked in IFR out over just about all of the Bering Sea down across the Aleutians. Anaktuvuk, VFR, either approach, risk of a thunderstorm in the afternoon. Adigan as well, maybe marginal conditions, VFR in the southern entrance. I'd call it VFR though the entire day. And Lake Clark and Merrill, okay, IFR in the western approaches tomorrow to start with, then becoming marginal VFR in general into the afternoon. Same forecast for rainy, lower conditions early on the western entrance, otherwise marginal. And windy, VFR, and I know one of these is going to go black, not that one, Isabel, VFR, and there it is, Mentasta, VFR. Hopefully it'll be look something better than that. Tanita, VFR, Portage, marginal becoming VFR, and freezing levels, 6,000 feet here and there, those signifying the two upper level lows and the colder air associated with them. So that's good for a few showers around possibly Kodiak Island, definitely back up into the Bristol Bay area, as well as the southeast coast. And here's the warm air mass extending in from western and northwest Canada, keeping those temperatures back up toward the lower 80s, especially on the east side tomorrow afternoon. Not much of a gradient at all out here over the Bering Sea. And for icing threats, an area of moderate to isolated to light to isolated moderate Reimer mixed icing below 12,000 feet. Some reason I'm thinking turbulence here. But areas of there over the southeast coast, and then some lingering areas of possible light icing, but really nothing too significant here over the southwest. And watching this low tomorrow at midday will still be back up here over the southwest interior, so that's going to keep it unstable enough for at least some showers around, although they'll be less widespread and less heavy, as I mentioned. 75 knots though coming across the Alaska Peninsula, and then this low slowly lifting northward but remaining off the north coast of the Panhandle. for the 9,000-foot winds. Pretty light over the interior here. Could see some 25-knot southwesterlies over the central Brooks Range and up to 20 knots there for the southern southeast coast. And then this system beginning to creep up and pick the winds up there over the west central Aleutians, but otherwise no wind here over the eastern areas up into the Bering Sea, but 25-knot narrow band of northwesterlies there coming down across the Alaska Peninsula. And light variable winds for the Fox Islands tomorrow, 3,000 feet, 15 to 20 knots here from the southeast Bering in across the peninsula. Light variable winds really for the entire interior areas down into the Gulf of Alaska, and 10 to 15 knot winds for the southeast coast. And after the break, turbulence, none significant here. Whatever occurs below 6,000 to 8,000 feet, maybe some light stuff here along the Alaska Peninsula, and then this area creeping up toward the central Aleutians. And I'll be back with the marine forecast after the segment.
Become familiar with the correct use and adjustment of your lap belt and shoulder harness. Adjust the lap belt so that it rests snugly across your hips, and then adjust your shoulder harness so that it is also snug. But make sure that the shoulder harness does not lift the lap belt from its proper position. If a single shoulder harness is used, it should extend across the torso for maximum effectiveness. In the case of emergency, the proper position for all occupants in the helicopter is the full upright position against the seat back. You should also become familiar with the Aircraft Intercom Systems, or ICS, for use during flight. You will need to note the location of the fire extinguisher, the ELT, or Emergency Locator Transmitter, the first aid kit, and extra survival gear. The location of these items will vary with different helicopter makes, as will the seatbelt mechanisms and door latches. Always get a thorough safety briefing for the type of aircraft that you are flying in. And if there is anything that you are unfamiliar with, please ask the helicopter manager before continuing your project or flight. During flight, the pilot is in charge of the aircraft and will give any instructions that you might need in case of an emergency. During the flight, you'll be able to speak to the pilot or other passengers over the intercom system. But when the pilot or helicopter manager are making radio calls or during takeoff and landing, passengers should refrain from using the intercom system. Always make sure that all your personal items are secure in the cabin and clear from the controls and instrument panel. Also watch for any flight hazards, such as other aircraft, birds, or ground hazards while in flight. Never assume that a hazard has been seen by the pilot. It is the job of the pilot and helicopter manager to determine the suitability of a landing site. However, you will probably take an active role in selecting areas and preparing landing sites. These off-site landing areas pose one of the greatest risks in helicopter operations due to the variable hazards involved. There are 4 factors involved in selecting a landing area. The first consideration is the size of the landing zone. Make sure that the landing zone and touchdown area are adequate for the model of helicopter you're using. Second, the landing area needs to be level with a clear approach and departure path. This path should allow passengers to board and depart the helicopter on the downhill slope in full view of the pilot. The third factor is the helicopter approach and departure path. There needs to be adequate clearance from obstacles for the helicopter to make a normal approach and departure from the landing zone while considering expected winds. The fourth factor is wind direction. The helicopter approach and landing should be into the wind. It's a good idea to tie pieces of flagging to small trees or shrubs near the landing area. This will give an indication of wind direction to the pilot on approach. You can also give a radio call to the crew with this information and let the pilot know if there are gusty or erratic winds. Remember to stand at the upwind side of the landing area with your back to the wind as a final reference for the pilot. Most off-site landing areas need some improvements to eliminate obstructions. The helicopter manager is trained to use chainsaws and can clear unimproved areas to meet agency guidelines. It's a good idea to keep the forest helicopter specialist and managers informed about future work sites that may need landing area improvements. Sites needing only minimal work can be improved by crews using hand tools. Special operations cover a wide variety of missions. Your involvement with the planning and performance of the job are very important. The helicopter manager will let you know what duties you will perform. It is important to remember in sling operations that only qualified aviation personnel will attach and unhook loads. For your own safety, plan for the unexpected. If bad weather comes in suddenly, you may have to choose an alternate pickup site. In this case, you may have to improve the site and guide the aircraft to your location. You can help the aircrew find your location by using your radio and giving your position in relation to the helicopter. You can do this by simply using the 12-hour clock technique. In this example, you would tell the pilot that you are at 9 o'clock. And wearing the highly visible orange flight suit will also help the aircrew find you easily. Your forest helicopter staff is making every effort to provide you with the safest and most efficient resource to help you meet your transportation needs. You can help us by becoming an active participant in the Region Aviation Safety Program. You can work with air crews in the planning process and provide options to allow for changing weather conditions. Have a plan for alternate projects so that bad weather won't spoil your day. By taking responsibility for your own safety and survival needs, your efforts will prevent incidents and prepare you for the unexpected.
Welcome back. Well, south to probably variable winds here over the southern inside waters, and light at about 10 knots. Could see 20 knots there through Lynn Canal in the afternoon, or possibly a little higher. Southeast, 15 along the coast, lightest up along the north coast. Then for Tuesday, no heavy winds expected either tomorrow or Tuesday here for the entire southeast coast. Getting a little more west to northwesterly, some higher pressure back in over the Gulf of Alaska to maybe northeast at 10 on the south coast. Light variable winds, no problems there at all. And then southeast or south-southeast 15 up to the north. Cook Inlet southwest 10, and that's about it. Same thing for Prince William Sound, variable at 10. Easterlies 5 to 10, North Gulf Coast, variable to southeast, all 5 to 10 knots, not only for Kamishak Bay, but all the marine areas around Kodiak Island. And for Tuesday, light variable winds continue there across Kodiak Island and Shelikof Strait, as well as all of the North Gulf Coast. Light variable winds 5 to 10, southwest 10 maybe for Prince William Sound, and kind of a southwest breeze up Cook Inlet at about 10. For the Bristol Bay Zone, westerlies at 10 knots tomorrow. Light winds here across all of the Alaska Peninsula from a west or west-northwest direction, with seas running 3 to 5 feet or so. And then for Tuesday, light variable winds to dead calm conditions here for the Bering side of the Alaska Peninsula. Just a light westerly drift there across Bristol Bay. Northeast or variable, 10 knots here southwest of Kodiak Island. Light winds also there on out to Cape Sarachev. And for the Aleutians, no wind for the Fox Islands tomorrow. And southeast maybe 10 for Atka. Turning east 15. Then watch for these winds to increase down here. Get my arm back. Up to 22 south of the Aleutians there tomorrow afternoon. And then probably see some small craft advisories in over the central areas, possibly Monday night, especially on the southern zones here. And then tomorrow southeast or east 20 to 25 knots there for the central Aleutians, more of a lighter northeast direction here to the west and even lighter southeast direction to the east. For the southwest coast, light breeze 10 knots from the west-southwest. Southerlies 20 knots here for St. Lawrence Island, at least for a short time tomorrow. Southwest 15, northern Bering Sea. Southwest 10 for the Pribilofs. Then for Tuesday, south at about 20 again, possible there for St. Lawrence Island. Light southwest winds here down the coast. Really not much change over the next couple of days coming up for these areas. And up along the Arctic coast, east or east-southeast, 5 to 15 knots there from demarcation point all the way to the central Gulf or central coast. Variable 5 there for the west side, and then got these southerlies at about 20 knots there from the Bering Strait on up across the Chukchi Sea or into the Chukchi Sea. And then for Tuesday, dropping off a little bit down in here, 15, even lighter winds in toward Kotzebue Sound. 20 knots there west of Cape Lisburne, Point Hope. Light variable again for the west side and east to northeast, now 10 to 15 knots with the strongest winds over toward demarcation point. Well, moisture continues to slide southward, beginning a little less heavy and a little less widespread as time goes on. Scattered showers over the interior with thunderstorms, and then tomorrow some of that may get in over Kodiak Island, drying out back to the west. This system pushes into the northeast tomorrow night and makes for kind of a cool, damp, cloudy day up there over the northwest with more showers over the eastern interior.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.